Hi, it's Hannah here from Really Good Crochet, and today I want to go through 10 things I have learned from 6 months of markets. So if you have never seen me before, I run a small crochet business based in Norfolk in the UK, and I have been kind of going around doing different markets for the past 6 months. And I can't believe it has been this long since I've been doing markets. It's actually, I think it's more like 7 or 8 months now. But 6 months sounds a bit better. And I feel like 6 months is when I really started digging into markets and learning a lot from them. And I have done a mix of indoor and outdoor markets now. So I feel like I've got a really good basis of things that I have learned over the past 6 months. And I am sure that as I continue doing markets, I will just learn more and more and more. If you see me looking down, it is because I have a list. And I also have a little dog next to me. So if you see my arm moving a bit weirdly, it's because I am fussing my Labrador, who is having a bit of an anxious day. Bless her. So number one is that not every market is equal. Now, what I mean by this is that a product that sells really well at one market may not sell as well at another market. I did a market where I made these chickens. They are called Made with the Chicken. Well, that's what the pattern is called. And they were selling. And I got so excited by that. I bought loads more materials to make it with. And I made a load more. I made more to the point that I had like over 20 of these chickens. I think I've still got over 20 of them. And yeah, they haven't sold as well now. They are still one that keeps ticking over and that I do get sales of, and people go up to them and they remark on them. But they are something that sold really well at one market and then haven't sold as well since. So don't get really excited by one product that sells really, really well and think, oh, I've got to make loads more of that, because it may not sell well at other markets. It depends on the day, it depends on the people that are attending. So much goes into it. And I've had markets at that venue since, and these chickens haven't sold as well. And I am now inundated with chickens, which, to be fair, I'm not mad about, because it means that I don't have to make more for quite a while. So I've always got a really good stock of chickens. Secondly, I want to say that markets that are out in the sticks, so, out in the countryside, out in small villages and small towns, aren't going to do as well as your big city markets. And I realise that is probably quite obvious. But even in those small communities, a lot of the time, people just don't go to those markets, which is a shame. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't do these markets. Sometimes they can be a really nice community event where your stall fee goes to charity, and it's a really good way to get your name out there, outside of your little bubble of where you live. And so I've done some where I've driven, an hour away, and while I didn't do great at those markets because there weren't loads of people there, I still did sell some things, and I also got to see more people and learn some things from those different markets, and also give to charities, which I really enjoyed. And there are some of those small markets that I will definitely do again. There are others which I won't do for various reasons. Especially the ones where actually the money isn't going to a charity, or isn't going back into the community. I will not be doing those, just because I think for those smaller markets, I want to more focus on helping out a community and, giving to a community in terms of my booth fee, rather than giving to a person who maybe isn't doing a great job at setting up a market and organising it and marketing it as well. Number 3 is that your setup doesn't have to be perfect. Oh my days. My first setup for a market, I basically had nothing compared to other people that were around me, or the people that had got these really fancy shelves and all of this stuff. I had literally just got this sleigh that I had painted because it was a Christmas market. And that was my setup. Basically, it was a sleigh. that I had one thing elevated on and nothing else. And I still did really well on that market, especially for my first one. I still made about 400 quid at that market. And I was pretty much selling out. And so I still did really, really, really well for the market. And it just shows that actually you don't have to have this really professional setup, especially if you were just starting out. So don't compare yourself to others who have maybe been doing this for years and years and years and know how to do it, know how to set up their booth. If you just want to get started at markets, do it. I would just recommend having the basics like a tablecloth, and maybe some branding materials, and you don't have to get like really fancy set up things. Something I have got is literally just a spice rack. I just bought a spice rack. I think it was from like B&M, cost me, maybe £5. And it's one that kind of extends. You can pull it out and it can go from like this size to this size. And I put quite a few plushies on there. And so it doesn't have to be these really fancy items. It can just be like a spice rack that you have in your cupboard. But obviously, the more you do markets, the more you understand, okay, these are the kind of items I want higher up. This is how I would like my booth to look. And then you can start getting more of these items, which are going to really make your booth look a lot more professional. But just don't get stressed out about it. Just go, just do it, because you'll still make sales and it will be okay. Number 4 is that small items definitely sell best, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't bring those big items, because they also sell. My price range goes from £5 to £120 for my items, and most of my items are between £5 and £20. That is because those are the kind of things that are easier to sell. They're going to sell more of. And, I also like to have stuff that kids can buy with their pocket money, and things that aren't going to break the bank, that get my name out there a little bit more. So as an example, this is something that I sell for £5. It's really small, really quick for me to make. And so I feel like I can sell this for £5. Whereas something like this, because this one is a bit more complex to make, because I have to make all the feet, I have to make the wings separately and crochet them in. This is something that I would maybe sell for £20-25, just because it takes longer to make, obviously, than this. And so I have more items that are in that bracket. However, I do also have really big items that I have sold. So I have a really big octopus. I will insert a picture somewhere here. It's absolutely huge, this octopus. I was selling it for £100. However, I have taken it to, and I've not just taken one, I've taken 2 to markets. And both of them sold quite quickly as well. They both sold on their second market out with me. And so obviously that is a more expensive item. I was selling that for £100. I have now upped the price to £120, because a few people have been like, Hannah, you should up the price of that. You should up the price of that. So I have now upped the price to £120. But that just shows that, yeah, those small items you're going to sell more of, but these big items also sell really quite well, and they're also really good for drawing people into the booth. And so what I will do with my octopus is I have it set up really quite high up in my stall, and that means that, especially in indoor markets, if someone is across the room, they can see my octopus and they will go, oh, that looks really cool. And then they will come to my stall. And I have had a lot of people say to me, I saw your octopus from across the room and I just had to come and take a look at it. And that is something that you really want for your bigger items. You want them to be eye-catching. You want people to be drawn into your booth. So they can look at the really big item, look at the price and go, ooh, I don't have the money for that. But then they go and look at the rest of your stall and see what else you have got. So that is like one of my biggest tips. Definitely take those big items. Don't think, this is never going to sell, so I'm just not going to take it. What I do is I say, this is never going to sell, but I'll take it just in case. Or I'll take it, you know, just as something eye-catching that people are going to want to come and have a look at. And people are still buying it. Yeah, even at, you know, a price point of 100 quid, people were buying it. We'll see what it does at 120 quid. Yeah, because that was something really, really cool that I did not expect. I did not expect this octopus to sell at a market, and I have had 2 sell at markets. And I think 2 in 6 months is pretty good for a 100 quid item, especially during an in-person market. And one of them was even at those smaller events that I talked about previously. It was at one of those smaller markets. And yeah, it's just quite incredible how these big items will still sell, and it still blows my mind. Number 5, bring spare labels. Oh my days. You can do everything you can to, you know, label your items before the market and everything. However, in transit, the labels can get damaged. They can rip off your item. And especially for me, legally, my items have to have labels on them. And so bring spare labels. Just bring spare labels, because they could get damaged and they could come off during transit. And it is really frustrating if you don't have the labels and that happens. Thankfully, I have always brought labels with me because I was worried about it happening. And you should be worried about it happening, because it most likely will at some point. Or there may be an item that you just forgot needed a label, and you get there and you go, oh, I didn't label that item. But it's fine, because you brought your labels with you. So I really recommend that, because I have had that happen at pretty much every single market I have gone to. An item has lost its label. So definitely bring some labels with you. Number 6, prepare yourself for last minute changes. Look, anything can happen during a market. Especially if it's an outdoor market, it could get cancelled due to weather. So just prepare yourself for these last minute changes. I had a market where I was initially going to be outside. I arrived and the organizer was like, hey, I've got space inside. Do you want to go inside? And I went, oh, yeah, brilliant. That's fantastic. For me, I would rather be inside than outside, just because I then don't have to faff around with my tent. But just prepare yourself for these last minute changes. You never know what is going to happen. It's one of those things. Anything can happen. Things can need to be cancelled or rearranged due to the weather or political events or whatever is going on. Stuff might change, and you just need to be aware of that and try to keep that flexible mindset. Because while changes can be really frustrating, sometimes they just cannot be avoided. Number 7 is something that I am still working on and that I need to work on, and that is making sure people can see your brand name. So I do have a banner. What I didn't think about when getting my banner was how I was going to attach it for indoor markets. That's something that I just didn't think about. And so something that I'm thinking about for the future is getting, you know, maybe a tablecloth with my name on it, or a table runner. Because currently for indoor markets, I don't really have anything that shows people what I am called, other than when you come up to my stall and you see like my labels. And so I think it is really important to make sure that, you know, your brand can be seen from further away. And this is something that I very much need to work on. I definitely need to work on it, and it is something that is on my radar to do. As soon as I have the money, I think I'm going to get a table runner. Table runners do tend to be a bit cheaper than a whole tablecloth, and I just think a table runner will work as well for markets where there's already a tablecloth there. And if I just don't feel like putting my own tablecloth on, I can then slap my table runner over the top and I'm done. So that is definitely something that is on my radar to improve, because I am currently really, really bad for that. Really bad for that. And if you're wondering where I get like my branding materials from, I get it from Vistaprint. I love Vistaprint. It's where I get my labels from, my business cards from. It's where I got my banner from. I also have little leaflets that I put inside any online orders, and those were from Vistaprint as well. This isn't sponsored by Vistaprint, I promise. However, I just love them as a company, and their products are just really high quality and really, really good. So that is where I get my branding materials from. I know lots of other people also get their branding materials from Vistaprint, so I highly recommend them. Number 8 is an important one, okay? I mean, they're all important, but this one is like public safety important, okay? Make sure you get a good quality tent for outdoor markets and test it out before you arrive at the market. I didn't do this very stupidly. I tried to test out the tent, but I was struggling to get it up. That should have been my first warning, was how stiff it was to get up. But when I got to the market, my tent was broken. It came with a snapped pole. It was really difficult to pull out. I spoke to other people who had got like those pop out market tents, and they said that it should not be that difficult to pull out. And so I was like, okay, I've gotten a really bad tent. And so I did send it back for a refund, because it was still quite expensive. It was over £100. But it just wasn't good quality. And so I have now got a new market tent, which is really, really good quality. It pops out really nice and easily, and it just goes up, and it's really easy and simple to do, and I love it. Yeah, I absolutely love that tent. It's really good quality. It's heavy. I will say it is very, very heavy and very, very difficult for me to move, especially with me being a wheelchair user. You can see a wheelchair here. This isn't my main wheelchair. However, I am currently at my mum's house, and I can't get my normal wheelchair around her house because I use a power chair. So here I use a manual chair. I can just about do it in my power chair. So I will say it's very, very heavy. However, it's very good quality. I can feel that it's good quality. And because it's so heavy, it's less likely to take off in the wind. Because that is also something that you really, really have to worry about and have to be aware of. If you are out during an outside market, you have to really be aware of safety of your materials and the safety of your tent. And so that is why I really, really recommend getting a good quality tent. Mine is from Bullhawk. Again, I'm not sponsored, but I really like the tent. It's good quality. There were a variety of colours that I could choose from. I went for white, just so that if it was a warm day, it wouldn't absorb the heat. And yeah, so far, I love it. Number 9, if you're outside, prepare for the weather. And even if you're inside, prepare for the weather, especially if it's a heat wave. You need to be aware of what the weather is going to be. If you are outside, Is it going to be a really hot and sunny day? If so, you need to wear sun cream. You absolutely need to wear sun cream because you will most likely get burned. Even if you have your market tent out, there is still a likelihood that you will get burnt setting up and breaking down. So it's really important that you were aware of that just in case. Is it due rain? If it is due to rain, then you might want to just, make sure you bring the sides for your market tent. You might want to make sure that you're setting up so that you're kind of in the middle of the tent in case the rain ends up being diagonal, which it often is in the UK. Or even bring a tarp with you that you can throw over your stock if it does get really, really rainy and, your market tent isn't quite cutting it and you're worried about your stock being damaged. Is it going to be windy? If so, make sure doubly, triply check that you have got your tent weights. Even if it is not due to be windy, bring your tent weights. They are so, so important to have for your safety and the safety of everyone around you. You really need to have your tent weights. It's not optional. It is something that you need to have to ensure that you are remaining safe. And number 10 is they're all really important, these. But number 10 is to just have a good attitude. You want to be approachable. I have been to quite a few markets where other stall holders have looked miserable. They've been sat there on their phone, they've looked miserable, and they've not seemed very approachable. And so because of that, people look at their stall, but they don't want to go up to them. So they don't, because they don't look very approachable. They kind of look like if you go up to them, then they're going to be annoyed with you. That is something that you want to avoid at all costs. You want to be approachable. You want people to be able to come up to you, ask questions about your stall. And so I really recommend kind of making sure that your body language is good, that your facial expressions are kind of, I'm not going to say like grin the entire time, because then they'll avoid you because, you look like, I don't know, you just look manic. But kind of make sure that you have like a friendly, neutral expression, which I know is difficult for some of us who have got resting bitch faces. I am one of them, so I do have to make sure that I score my facial features. And something else that I do is I sit there and I crochet at the same time, so it means that people feel that they can come and have a look and I'm not just like staring at them. Because I think, if someone's coming up to your stall and you are staring at them and just like looking at them and waiting for them to come in and speak to you, that can make it feel quite awkward. And so I sit there and I crochet for the market, and that seems to makes me more comfortable, and it seems to make other people who are coming to my stall more comfortable. And then we can have a chat, and often they'll go, oh, so you make it yourself? And we can have a chat about the process. And if it's a child, I can say, this is how I make it, and do a little demonstration, which I really love doing. And yeah, I think that is something incredibly important, because if you don't look approachable, you're probably not going to get the sales. So that is everything for today. I hope you found this really helpful in terms of, if you were wanting to do markets in the future. I hope that this was really helpful for you and that you learned a lot about this. Yeah, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Please like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments, have you done markets? Are you looking to do markets? I'd be really interested to see how many of you have done markets and how many of you are looking to do markets in the future. Thank you so much. Bye.